Hi, ladies and germs. Welcome to art. So these are the things that you will need for the art project today. First of all, you will need a shallow bowl. If you have the one that unbreakable, that will be a safer option. Okay. The next one is a jar of water with some brushes. We will be using the part without the brush quite a lot today. Next one is any type of not sharp cutter. So butter knife, pizza cutter, it doesn't matter. I have cake cutter there as well. Rolling pin. If you don't have this, then you can always use the water bottle. It doesn't matter. Anything that can be used to roll later on. And the parchment paper came with the clay that I sent you. Make sure that you work on that because it can be really sticky if you work on the floor. Okay, kids, let's do this. So first thing first, you will put a little bit of water on top of your clay. And then after that, put the parchment paper on top of the slightly wet clay. Okay, so it's not going to be sticky on your rolling pin. Um, why do you need to put a little bit of water on it? So it's easier for you to work with the clay because you want to make it flat, and when it's too dry, you will have to put much more pressure on it and you don't want to get tired. Again, you can use water bottle, anything with the similar shape will work. So now from here, you will have to add a little bit more water in each step of the way and keep rolling until you have the right thickness and that the clay surface is big enough for your design later on. You don't want it to be too thick because it will be really hard to work with, and also you don't want to be too thin because it's really easy to tear apart or create holes when you do your design. This is the thickness and the shape that you should end up with before we move to the next step, which is copying the design on the clay. Okay, now I have my design here. This is Hamsa. A lot of people believe that this is the sign to protect you from bad things. I just love it because it has a lot of very beautiful pattern. So I put my design on top of my clay and I'm using the tip of my brush, the one without the brush, to trace it on the clay. You won't be able to see it here, but when you do it yourself, you will be able to see the trace of the pattern of your design on your clay. Okay, do it very lightly and I will show you here. I hope you can see it. Now I have my Hamsa on my clay. So I won't use my pizza cutter on this. I prefer to use the cake cutter because it's easier for this type of design, this type of pattern. I put a little bit of water on my cutter just to make it easier to work with the clay. I took my time, get a little bit more water on my cutter just to make sure that the cut is neat. Okay, just slowly cut your pattern. Take your time. This video looks a little bit faster because that's what I did. I made it faster by 2 times. So take your time in this process. So I just keep cutting until I'm ready to separate the part of the clay that I will use with the leftover. This leftover I will definitely will use again later for a different design, so don't throw it out because you guys can definitely make something else out of this. And now what I'm doing here is just having a little bit of water on my brush and just smooth out the edges of my clay just to make sure that it will look nice and neat at the end. Okay, so I keep working on my clay here. If you want to fix your clay here and there, or adding a little bit more detail on the edges there, you can do that. Otherwise, just keep smoothing. Make sure that any tool that you use is slightly wet, so it's easier to work with your clay. So keep working on your clay until you're happy with how it looks. Here I just add a little bit more detail on my hamsa. If you want to fix your clay here and there, you're more than welcome to do so. I also dip my finger to the water and just run over the edges there to make sure that everything is smooth. Okay, now what I do here is I'm taking the brush and I use the tip, the one without the bristles, the one without the brush, and just the same idea like we did earlier with the tracing. This one just adding pattern on my clay. You can do that as well if you want, or if you prefer, you can also just stop the process here, let the clay dry, and you can add your pattern later with paint. However, I like to have texture on my clay, so that's why I do this. The idea is the same. You just draw your pattern on your wet clay and you will see the texture of it. So that's what I do here. I just add little bit of petals here and there, dots, line, just go crazy with it as usual. So be creative, choose what you want, draw what you want, add a little bit of texture or not, it's really up to you. Okay, so when you're happy with your design and pattern, so that's it. Now you can cut your parchment paper. We still use this to make sure that it doesn't stick to the surface of the bowl that we use. So just put your clay on the bowl and press it a little bit to make sure that it has that curve. So the idea is to use this as the key holder or any trinkets, any jewelry that you have, and just put it on the tray, the clay tray.